Well, I think I'm doing it. Okay. Yes, so we are live on Facebook and we are good to go. Okay, so hello everyone, welcome to anyone watching the replay as well, because I know there's a lot of people doing that. And thank you so much for Holly Rhiannon of Awakening Avalon to come along and speak with me, because, well, I was basically a few months ago thinking, what I know there's a new offering coming through, what would be most useful to the people that I work with generally, or for people, you know, in today's world and with everything going on, what would be most useful? And I realized I have all these tools I've collected on transmuting distortion, which basically means healing. It is alchemizing and shifting out of what keeps us stuck or heavy or in pain or in suffering, or not really being able to shine our light or be bright or, you know, be expressed and radiant in the world, like having our life force available to us. So transmuting distortion is healing, and I've collected so many tools along the way that's why I've created the offering Transmute Distortion. And then I love Holly, and I just said to her, would you like to speak with me about distortion? And she said yes, and that's all we've spoken about it. We haven't discussed it further. I sent her the picture, and then we're here. So we've just jumped on a couple of minutes ago, and we're quite excited that all the colors matching in our two little pictures. Yay! And yeah, I thought maybe if you would like to introduce yourself. Who are you? Just so that people from my world get to know who you are. And
absolutely. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. As I said, I'm so happy to be here. I always love dropping in with you. We always have these amazing conversations. You know, Sarah and I have been, I don't know, when did we connect? It was 2015, 2014, 2015, I think.
It was
something like that.
For aura transformation, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I immediately had this really strong soul resonance with Sarah. And whenever we've connected, it's been this really fertile field that unfolds. And so when she asked me, I just had an immediate yes. Those of you who do know me on here know I don't actually say yes very often to just doing something like this. So yeah, but I just really felt how important this is right now. So I just want to give so much honor and reverence to you, Sarah, for feeling the call to drop in, especially, you know, it's interesting how it happened. I'll talk about myself in a moment, but it's interesting how it happened to land on today, right? So in terms of the seasonal tides, and the astrology right now, this is a really profound portal that we're in for the next week. So we're receiving really deep nourishment for our soul genius codes to expand in this coming year and to be truly alive and choosing our genius and choosing that full radiance that we all feel the calling to express, as Sarah has already spoken to. So anyway, I am Holly Rhiannon, and I am the founder of Awakening Avalon Temple. I have been on my priestess path for over 3 decades now, and you know, been in just very, very deep journey myself on my spiritual path, many dark nights of the soul, and my path has just taken me in lots of different arenas, and especially always down into this place of sovereignty and finding freedom inside of the suffering, right? And so let's see, what else do I want to say about myself? You know, this is always the part that I'm actually not the most comfortable with. It's so funny, like the talking about myself. So I have a doctorate in Indigenous mysticism. I have been teaching again for 3 decades and run a beautiful school for the priestesses of Avalon. And I run a lot of different courses on the Arthurian lore and legends, and really the core of what that is, which is establishing Camelot and Awakening Avalon in the world, you know, living as these deep stories and these legends, and becoming legendary in our own lives, truly accessing our mythopoetic power, and then bringing that out into the world. So yes, I am delighted to be here. Lots of other things could be said, but that's what I like. I wanted to come out right now.
That's a good start. And then just for people that don't know who I am, I can see a few people that I do know here, but for those that don't know me, I'm Sarah Jennings of Dare to Be, and I was, I've been working with something called aura transformation for about 8 years. And that is like a total upgrade of the energy field. I think that's how we may be connected, Holly, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And then I became over time an instructor for aura transformations. So I've been teaching people how to do aura transformations, but with the pandemic, that kind of has been on the wayside just because it's all very in-person stuff. And so I created a lot of my own courses, which have been bubbling for years, you know, and I just didn't have the time, or when am I going to do it? And I've done it now. So I've created the Visibility Gateway, helping wellness practitioners, healers become less afraid of being visible with their healing work, because there's been a lot of vilification and there's been a lot of ridicule for our professions for centuries and centuries. So there's a lot of fear built up in the body. So it's helping people overcome that. And then I also have something called Heart Retrieval, and I created Heart Retrieval, and then a course came out of that called Love Again, and it's very much tied in with this Transmute Distortion, which is the new course that I'm starting. Heart Retrieval is all about bringing in your heart threads and your energies from all over the place, and the relationships and people, but it can go back into your childhood and further back. And I think that's one of the biggest, if we have distortion here, then here we have someone really in their power, really in their own energy, and really like the architecture of their spirit and of their inner self is so strong that distortion cannot distort it. So how do we get from a person or a being that can become easily swayed or feel all these distortions? How do we come into a place where that doesn't affect us in the same way anymore? And I know in my own story that I definitely, you know, I was so distorted, I didn't know I'd live very long. You know, I had burnt the candle in so many ways. Even my skin was coming apart. I had psoriasis all over my body at some point, like my body was screaming out for something different. And I had to really pull my energy and my spirit and everything, my courage, into becoming something else. And over time, I feel like I've rebuilt myself from cells to energy to body into something that, you know, feels a lot safer and a lot more, you know, peace and love in my whole being, which then automatically means that distortion can't affect you in the same way. We'll get into what distortion is, but just to finish, my who am I thing is I'm trained kinesiologist. So all my courses and the Transmute Distortion and all the one-to-one work I do, I use kinesiology, which means that I identify a bit like a wizard alchemist, a bit like a Sherlock Holmes, you know, energy detective. You know, we really get to the bottom of what energies are doing what and why, and how can we get to the bullseye and transmute it into something else. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I love doing what I'm doing, and I'm really happy to be here too. But so we have no idea where we're going to go from here. But I think what we could start with is what is distortion? Do you want to start with, because I also, just as another maybe layer, I imagine we're going to go very macro, like much bigger picture. What does it mean to be a human? Why are we here? What's this spiritual experience? What's, you know, what's that all about? You know, and then micro as in everyday human today in this world 2022. What does it mean to be human now, and what's happening? So I think that kind of, we're going to go quite big, and then maybe more small, and then maybe personal, because we both had quite incredible experiences as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know, just when I was feeling in the few hours before our, you know, dropping in on this live today, I do a lot of movement when I'm, you know, coming into a teaching circle of any kind. And so I was dancing, and I was really feeling that one of the things that I wanted to share that I think is so important about distortion, and maybe learning to identify it, is that distortion is really anything that takes you out of your sovereignty. right? Out of your original essence, out of your belongingness to your lineage, your belongingness to earth, your beingness on your path, and the belief in that, right? And the knowing of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, like Sarah said, there's huge levels of this, and it goes all the way down to very small microcosmic levels. And really, it's the same thing. It's the same frequency. And so one of the most important things, I think, when we're engaging with transfiguring or transmuting distortion is to set an intention to become aware and awake around and lucid in this place of, is this thought right now, is this beneficial to my sovereignty, right? Is this feeling, is this part of my sovereign essence? Is this part of my I am essence, right? So on a really, well, not on the biggest level, but on a planetary level right now, which is one of the most interesting levels to me, because I relate, as probably many of us do, we relate to some, star nation energies and some bigger multidimensional energies and all of that. But all of us are here on a Gaian star walk, or on a Gaian earth walk, right? We're Gaian beings. And so I'm personally very interested in the planetary level of consciousness. And at that level, when we are in a distortion field, we're in we're always in a powerful collective field. In the occult traditions, these are called egregores. And they are big group mind fields. They're group mind they're minefields. It can feel like a battleground when you're in, like when you've been hijacked by a strong egregore energy. They're also group heart fields. For women, they're group womb fields. For men, they're group hara fields. And so the distortions at that level, they when we get individuals that all are thinking similar things, that in itself becomes a consciousness. Yeah. And that consciousness actually starts to have its own agenda and its own desires and its own entityness, its own beingness, right? And so what I see regularly when I'm working with the women that walk with me on the priestess path is one of the core practices is to differentiate from the egregore fields that are not beneficial, right? And these come in the form of our inherited bloodline stories, inherited bloodline patterns, and they come, they're political parties, they are, national soul groups, et cetera, right? They become a very unconscious part of our identity. We believe in them, we believe that that's who we are, and yet it's actually not, right? So that's one of the main things that, as I was moving and feeling, that I feel it's so important right now for those of us on the path of awakening. And everyone here that's listening, that is here on the call live and will be listening to later, is devoted, right, and wants freedom both for yourself and for the world. And so this is one of the core pieces with distortion, is to start to recognize first when it's there, and then go from there, right? So I don't know if you want to say more about maybe defining distortion in your words, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that distortion, I would have said exactly the same in terms of whatever takes you away from your sovereignty. But I would add just to would call that a thought form, is that, for example, money is a good example. Money in itself is a thought form. It's like a cloud. Everyone feeds into it. Everyone has ideas about it. You can plug into the continuum where you're plugging into the fear of not having, or, like the darker side of money, or you can be like, wow, abundance, and I can do so much good with the money. So where are you plugging in to the field of a thought form? And I mean, there's so many, almost everything becomes a thought form in the world we're in. Certainly with social media, ideas can become loud. Another way I see thought forms is that they start to enter into your mind a bit like an earworm, or like a little mouthpiece plugging in. And then you can start, because of all the work I did with the aura transformation, your energy field can become like a universal plug socket like USB ports all over your energy field for different programming, which takes us to yeah, kind of a slightly more meta, even more bigger level than the thought forms. Is, you know, how is our energy field becoming like an old bit of technology that is no longer supporting us? And my belief is that the energy field is actually the way, you know, the way our energy interacts with others, the way it interacts with nature, the way it interacts with our mind or plugs into the field, is a piece of tech in a way. And I feel my take on it is that that tech maybe worked for a long time, but we've come to a point where it has to change, and it no longer works for us in the same way, and has even become overburdened with programming, thought forms, plugins, ancestral stuff, also all sorts of distortion. And that's where the aura transformation is an interesting piece, because we're dissolving the old tech and integrating a new crystalline aura structure. So a lot of my take on these distortions is that I've spent many hours feeling into all these different things that are happening. But there's another layer as well of what distortion can come across as, is contracts and vows that we've made, whether it's with the thought form or the entity, or with certain beings, or, you know, so in the spiritual world, it's sometimes you have to be quite careful that what are you channeling or bringing through? Is it really you and your spirit self? Because I personally have no guides. Well, I don't work with any guides. I don't identify with any really layers of other energies. I just make sure I'm always speaking to my I am, and that's it, nothing else. So that might be, I know that we're quite different maybe in that respect. So distortion can come on so many levels. So when I said vows and contracts, I mean that say you were in a life where something cataclysmic happened, you were taken away from your healing arts or your, you know, teaching profession or whatever it was, something horrible happened, and you vowed in between your lives, I will never teach again, I will never heal again, I will never be the medicine woman again, I'll never be the priestess again. And that vow was maybe useful to a point, but then it becomes distortion now, when you can't express yourself, when you need to be the healer, the medicine woman, the priestess, whatever it is you want, you need to do with your expression and your light and your radiance. It can't come out because you've made these contracts and vows. So in a way, we've also distorted ourselves from our own sovereignty and our own expression. Yes, so there's so much to the distortion piece, because it can be kind of harmless, and it can also be really uncomfortable. And I think when you become a practitioner and you become more and more proficient, you know, like good at what you do, then there is another kind of layer of distortion that you have to start working, being much more aware of it, basically, I think. It doesn't feel like it knocks me off balance very much anymore, but just recently I went to a conference and I came home and felt really weird for about 5 days. I felt like I was in goo or something, and even waking up felt like there was cobwebs everywhere. You know, it was like really weird and unusual. And that's a good key, like something is distorted because feels unusual, and I'm sensitive, so I was feeling all this stuff and I was like, what is this? And I couldn't keep my eyes open a lot of the day. And then I had some work with my kinesiologist, and we found that there was a kind of the shadow of the conference attached to me, because I'm a bright light, and it didn't have anywhere to go. And then I was somehow able to express it and get rid of it and just do what I had to do. So when you become good at what you do, a bright light, and you're shining and expressing, things attach to you quite quickly because you're bright and shiny. And the same thing can happen. You know, why would you become a target of distortion? Is if your energy field is completely blown. You know, the obvious example would be, you know, alcohol and drugs, you know, can leave you really open to attachment and things attaching to you. I don't know if you want to speak into where I'm kind of going into so many places.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's so important, especially, you know, with the timing that we're in right now in the, you know, I call it, and many people call it, the turning of the ages, right? Where there's a huge paradigm that's dying off, and it's inside of us and it's outside of us, right? And during these times of when the ages turn, which by the way it's much longer than any of our human lifetimes, right? So it happens over a period of a few thousand years. And so we're right in the middle of that. We're in the winter time, the death of the old, and we're getting glimmers of the new for sure. But in these times we become very sensitive because we have to dismantle, right? We have to dismantle from the inside out. And again, everyone here is committed to clearing the things that no longer work, right? This, like you said, Sarah, your metaphor of being a tech that doesn't work, right? It's an operating system, or for me, I'm my channel runs more mythopoetic, so these are old stories, right? Which then, yes, on a technical level, that goes down to the DNA, right? The coding in the DNA, which is the book of life, which are light codes in the cells, et cetera, et cetera. And so for me, the metaphor is more the stories are changing, right? And when this is happening, when the dismantling is happening, we're inherently incredibly vulnerable and sensitive, right? Because there's a breaking apart. And yes, absolutely. I mean, I experience it a lot. I know many people do experience that feeling of, going in. Sometimes for me, I'll even just go into the grocery store and I'll have a nice interaction with the cashier, and I'll come back and I'll be like, oh my God, I got to get that energy out of me, right? And so I think that I'm so glad to be talking about this, because I think that it's one of these things that we aren't taught to pay attention to this, and we're taught that it's not even real, this kind of absorbing of energy, especially for anyone that's on a healing path or priestess work or alchemist or anything like that. Like we're really meant to mirror, and we're meant to be sensitive. It's actually a great strength and a soul gift. But when we get born into a human form earth walk, there's a veil of forgetting that happens. And then we identify with our cultural stories, with our bloodline stories, etc., which have a lot of that pain body operating in them. And so it's so hard to remember, oh yeah, I actually have to clear out, right? So I have a daily practice, just a really clear daily practice where I do cold showers in the morning when I wake up. So I clear anything that I do a ton of, I know Sarah's like this, probably most of you here too. You do a ton of actual work. You've got a lot going on in your dream time, right? You're multidimensional beings. And it's so important to remember that. That's where much of your sovereign strength is in your expanded multidimensional self. But anyway, I clear in the morning. I clear my field out in the morning, a cold shower, and then I seal myself, right? I anoint myself, and I seal particular places on my physical body. And I seal them. Some of you know this. I can see some familiar faces on here, but I seal with, it's an X. It's an X sigil, and it's the bottom of the feet, the root chakra, the umbilicus, the back of the neck. This is called the mouth of God, or the well of dreams here. And it's an Akashic point. This is where a lot of things actually attach to us, is through the back of the neck here, the crown of the head, and then the palms of the hands. And so I have different anointing oils that I make. I use a lot of plants, medicine plant allies, as support. I resonate very, very deeply with the nature path, of course. I know probably everybody here does as well. So that helps a lot. And I always ask, is this mine? Right? Is it mine? Most of the stuff that you feel crappy about, it's not yours at this point. So that was one of the other things that really is, I feel it's so important right now. And this is not to do any bypassing, but there's actually an egregore hook in the quote New Age, New Earth communities, spiritual communities, about you got to do your shadow work. You've got to get in there and really root out all of the shadow that's in your being. And this is very true, right? There's an integration of shadow and integration of those parts of our beings that's essential, but there can be an overflow and a hijacking that happens when we're in that too much. So you must at this point, especially if we want to really start to, in our own physical lives, live as our expanded multidimensional mastery and genius, we have to choose out of this part of choosing out of the old story, right? And choosing into your magnificence. And so my deep sense of that is that there's a lot to say about shadow work, and I love it. And there I do see this pattern now where people get stuck looping. There's a karmic looping that happens. And it's just, it actually feeds off of you, right? There's a feeding off of that happens.
Yeah, and I've seen it in the way I've worked with groups of healers, doing the visibility gateway or whatever, and what stops you from manifesting what you want or working the way you want or being out there. And one of the things that, in the way I see the things, is that there's like a program or tech that attaches to the back of you, and it's like loads of hooks, and it just keeps you recycling your life force energy into your underworld, into the shadow subconscious, and just go around and around, and you're like, oh, I can't put my work out there until I clear this, and I can't do that thing until that's done, and oh, there's another thing, and so it's like I'm not good enough as the other massive thought form that is pretty much, I would say, the universal human today thought distortion is that I'm not good enough, I don't belong, I'm not important, all that kind of thing. But I've worked with these, I call them technologies, I guess. We've just got a very different way of describing it, but it's just like something, once you can identify something, oh wow, that thing is plugged in there and it's stuck here and it's hooked in like this, then you can very quickly start dismantling it. And that's, you're saying about coming into your magnificence and really, living on earth and enjoying being here. That's like one thing, but it's also it's on the technical side, that to me means that you're really in your center and you really belong. You really know you belong. You're you're part of the fabric of consciousness of the universe. If you weren't here, then nothing would be here. So we're all completely supposed to be here and doing what we're doing. And but coming into, so sovereignty is a word I think that maybe does confuse some people, maybe not in our circles, I don't know. But this sovereignty is very much about, I own my energy, my thoughts, my heart threads, where my energy goes, where my attention goes. I own my edges. And own is not, we're not talking about like capitalism. Own. And also people often go like, yeah, but if you own all that and it's all like so tight around you, how do you interact or be part of the world? And it's not at all about cutting off from people. It's about showing up in your wholeness, your fullness, and having something to offer, not an empty cup that's like not yours anymore. It's really being able to offer more and be more alive and be more, reclaiming all these parts of yourself, including your mental space and your emotional space is such a huge part of the journey to the awakening, magnificence, being in your center. But I think that, I don't know.
Can I hop in for a second? Because when you said something about, when you really are in that space of owning yourself, that there is sometimes a pushback around, oh, well, then how do you interact, right? And there's a really beautiful image that it's one of my Native American elders actually gave this to me. One of my journeys, which, when we're empathic and we are relational and we're caring and all of that, we can get very codependent, right? And intertwined and enmeshed and all of that. And so I was working through, I'm sure it was a relationship ending or something like this, and going through the heartbreak, right? I know we both have been through very deep journeys with that, and being really, really entwined and enmeshed in others' energy fields. And so he actually, and I do think that it is a fear around, we don't want to be isolated. And of course we can't be isolated ever, truly. And the new earth and our golden dawn and all of that we're all committed and devoted to, is actually created through the collective. And the collective is what has power in the egregore field as well too, right? So it's very important to really really get. So when you're in, this is just a little tangent here for a moment, but when you're in an egregore distortion, which all distortions are being amplified by egregores right now, especially as Sarah said, the egregore of not enough, and also fear, right? Fear is amplifying everything right now. And so when that happens, then there's a, you just want to, there needs to be like a pushing that out. And so you want to be able to come into this place where the entwining is, is like this, right? But you can still be in a very powerful and deep relationship when each individual is like this, and then you come together. Actually, there's more contact.
Yeah.
It's palm to palm. I mean, just as a visual, it's palm to palm. There's a lot more contact between two separate beings, two sovereign beings like this, than there is like this. There's actually not much contact, true contact here, right? It's just little bits and pieces. It's all kind of, again, distorted, and it's like there isn't a sense of wholeness that's there.
Yeah,
right?
and I explain it in a very similar way. I always say, if you're two people in your sovereignty and your power, you're grounded, you're connected, and then you come together, you're, like you say, meeting like more contact. But if you're sourcing energy or power from each other, one is draining and the other one's getting bigger, and then the other one. So it's sourcing your power, your energy, and your validation of self. I'm good enough, I'm well, I'm lovable, blah blah blah, has got nothing to do with your partner or the person in front of you or your friends. It should come from within you, and that is a big journey. That's a big journey home. And I think why are we here on earth? What are we doing here? It's like these consciousnesses. Why here? Why is it so hard? Why is there distortion? Why is there the light and the dark? And my understanding of like this much bigger picture is that earth density, earth field, where we are right here, right now, there is an ability, a materialization ability to take something from the mind into something outside, a vision into a real thing, building things. But it's the same with our energetic structures and our consciousness. The way that we operate with the way our consciousness and our spirit moves through this world can shift and change dramatically in one lifetime. And as you alchemize and learn to maybe not be in judgment, or not have rage, or not be bitter, and not be resentful, or all those kind of lower vibration emotions, if that's where you live a lot of the time, you learning how to come into your center and your strength and become love and powerful being just here and okay in your body, that was a huge alchemical change that became solid in your consciousness on some level. And it's earth sphere that allows you to change your consciousness to such a deep level. And when you die from this body and you go wherever we go next, you take those shifts that you made, those upgrades in your expansion and in who you are as a spirit, you take that with you. You don't take the body, you don't take the things you built outside, but you do take what the structure of your consciousness and the expansion that you created here. And this grand awakening is like everything has gone much faster, I think, in this. And I know that there's so many levels. I don't even know. I'm like struggling to think, like, because there's so many angles. Is that where I was before? It was just very confusing, because there was a level of disconnection as a person growing up, just generally, like TV, that kind of level of disconnection from the systems that we're in. And I'm a very magical person, and I didn't, that's not taken care of in school, it's not like nurtured and brought out. So there's like a level of disconnection that's happened. And then there was this sort of cataclysmic waking up and seeing energies everywhere. And like, I thought I was going crazy, but there was part of me that knew it was absolute truth. Like, I'm seeing what's there, but no one else is talking about it. And then it became too, it was almost like my awakening as a healer, it was a bit much, and I had to learn to channel it and control it and turn it off, so I can have dinner with family and then turn it on when I'm with clients, for example. So there was a whole journey there. But that awakening for me was really scary, because I had no energetic protection and I had no sense of self. I had no self-worth. So there was lots of relationships, codependencies, volatility. There was just all of that meant that I'm awakening to all these energies. I'm a bright light. Something big is happening, but I'm like, just like the universal plug socket is wide open, and I was having nightly visitations from very scary entities, incubi, demon things. I was having to have spiritual battle with these siphoning tubes that were trying to attach to me nightly, and I realized after and during that this was the making of me learning to stand in front of those things and learn how to not be afraid, I call it the spiritual equation of self. It's like this tightrope that you walk, where if you're just slightly off, you'd fall off. Or if you're slightly out of balance, it would get you. And then you wake up the next day exhausted because this astral battle's happened again. And it was like the fight for my spirit. It was the fight for me to reclaim something, or I don't know. But I realized that it was what I call a spirit-led shamanic initiation, because I wasn't brought to the edge of the village by my elders and told to go kill a boar and come back and have do the medicine that way. I had to do it in this other realm, like my body remembered, oh, you do this thing where you have to have some rites of passage and you need to clear this distortion, you need to fight for yourself. And eventually, so there was a lot of very scary nights and also very beautiful and like, wow. I mean, a few times I woke up and there was Anubis and I didn't know who Anubis was. Literally 7-8 foot tall, skin moving and breathing. I could see the hairs, tiny hairs on the black skin, very odd. Me going like, what is that? I didn't know if I should be scared or not. Then I was starting to look it up. Then this whole Egypt thing started happening at that point. So for me, the drugs and partying and no self-esteem and the low, the lack of self-center meant that I was open and I was falling in and out of past lives. I was walking around and 1 minute I'm in a past life, the next minute I'm dying in some other battlefield. It was too much and it was uncomfortable and scary and a lot. And then I think that was part of the initiation, but then something has to happen. And something that happened, there was several occasions where you pull yourself together out of a dimension where there's all these timelines flipping, like you're just changing TV channel. I kind of had to move myself out of those realms, which weren't good for me, into some other dimension where also all the power from all my lives into one focal point, into one place, into the here and now, so I could focus. Aura transformation helped a lot, but it wasn't only that. So that's kind of my story of how I had to battle out of really distorted energies, and in a way that story explains a little bit more maybe about the bigger picture of what's happening to us as we wake up and we remember. The history we've been taught is not the one that we remember. It's a lot deeper and a lot weirder. Sorry, I've talked for ages, but I don't know.
Great, Sarah. It's always wonderful to listen to your experiences and how you articulate them and share about them, because our stories are everything, right? And as we share personal stories, there's particular codes and frequencies that we can relate to that don't come through, quote, a fact, right? Because especially from my mythopoetic lens, we're all stories, we're living myths, and that's actually where the power is, right? That's where the sovereignty begins. And yes, I mean, my goodness, there's so much here, right? I mean, I think that, in terms of forgotten history, one of the most important things for me, and again, this harkens back to something I said earlier in the live as well, which is that, we're all here, we're on Gaia, right? We're with Gaia, we're with this particular planet, and she is a living being herself. She is alive. She has her own story, her own legends, her own trajectory, and she's very important and she's very special in the whole of not just the solar system or the galaxy, but the whole of the cosmos and in all of the universes, right? And of course, all planets are unique, but we're here, we're now on Gaia for a reason. And we are reclaiming her, right? There is a story in some of the Gnostic traditions about how Sophia, the great divine mother goddess of all, she got buried in the, quote, second dimension, which is down underneath our physical layer. It's like inside of us. This is inside of, our DNA. And she's down inside of the earth, the story goes. And so there's also a place, there's so many teachings that I heard, but in any case, most of what we're doing here right now is we are actually reclaiming that divine wisdom, the divine sovereignty that's in the land itself, right? In the physical planet and in our physical bodies, you know. So I know my journey as well. I've actually had a lot of very similar experiences to what Sarah speaks of. And I do fully believe now, I didn't at the time, I thought I was insane. I'm going to end up in a mental institution, right? That's what's going to happen here. And yet it was all of that, those dark nights of the soul, and being what feels like devoured inside of the distortion. They are at some point, and it's a bit of both going beyond rock bottom and surrendering. It's a bit of that. It's a bit of grace, a lot of grace. And it's also a place where you kind of say, fuck this shit, right?
Basically.
And you realize that you're learning skills in there. You're learning skills that are not taught in the mainstream modern culture, that got lost. And for me, I identify it as a big forgetting that happens when it's very recent. Of course, there's other ones that are much farther, quote, back in linear time, but a very recent one, which is very, very significant, is the Industrial Revolution, when we got out of intimacy and deep weaving with the earth herself and with her powers, her seasonal rhythms, and her powers of regeneration that happen, right? That's us, that's our physical body. And so I do really believe that I say this a lot in my classes, that, the physical body is a light body just as much as all the other bodies are light bodies, our astral bodies, the layers of that. The physical body is a light body. And I feel that that's one of the most important things that we're doing when we reclaim this. It's actually reclaiming this great Gaia Sophia energetic, it's the sovereign powers in the earth. In all of the Celtic mythologies, we find that sovereignty is embodied in a goddess of the land, right? And in the land itself. And so that translates to our relationship to the earth, her physicality, her sensuality, the seasons, those earth-based rhythms. Those are given by God, right? Those are given by God. They're given by the divine. Your sovereignty is never in the human realms. It's only in your connection to the divine. And, I love, even though, my personal path, I personally have worked with lots of guides and allies and all of that. But I love what Sarah says about, her real deep focus with her I am presence. And, for me, my guides are just aspects of my multidimensional, they outpicture, so my snow leopard is an outpicturing of a particular resource of power for me, right, etc. So they're not separate from me, they're part of me. But in any case, that reclaiming is so important. And there is a reclaiming of skill, of capacity, and of agency. And that's actually when we get the surrendered part of reclaiming the feminine in the body, but then we have to reclaim the masculine of the skill and the agency and the creative directive power, right? And so, for me, it's kind of the both and that's there, that's so important. And I know for sure that I look back now, and even though I would have given anything to not have had the journey that I had in terms of the dark nights of the soul and, suicidal ideation, the whole, everything. I mean, just really dark, very, very dark, not dark in terms of the fertile dark of the feminine, but dark in terms of the distortions on turbocharge, right? And there is a transfiguration that happens inside of that. There is a reclaiming that happens inside of that. So I guess, it's interesting that we ended up at this place, that this wasn't a place where I even imagined going to, right? But it's like, this is where the distortion actually serves your path, should you choose it to, right? We are not here, probably we are in our own human lifetimes, we're probably not going to be experiencing the full out picturing of the new earth, right? We're going to be living in distortion. We're going to be interacting with distorted energy fields, with these egregorian fields. And so our journey in that is that, actually, we can, should we choose, we can allow that to develop our capacity and our skill to and radiate as a beacon inside of that, right? Radiate as a beacon inside of that. And that's what, when Sarah found that, and we know for me too, when we find that place in all of you, when you find that place of, again, grace, fuck it, okay, I'm like completely surrendered, and I'm gonna be devoted to my connection to source and to the divine within me. And that's going to outpicture in many, many different ways, right?
I mean, there's a reason why I didn't call this protection, because it's not about protecting, and it's not about defending and protecting and warfare and fighting. It's not that at all. I love what you said about where we are right now is like that we are the awakening. Like all of us, like what we make of this and our experience of the world becomes a part of the grand awakening. So everyone working towards it is creating the awakening. It's not just something that's kind of floating past and will hit Earth like a slap, like, hello, Earth wakes up. It's not like that. It's a, we're part of it. We're like, like all these shoots coming out of the ground. So that's where I think there's a level of responsibility of coming to, what part are you playing? But the reason why it's not called protection and defense or something like that is because my understanding, so with the heart retrieval work, it's definitely become more of a reality, is that the stronger your sense of self is, that you can source validation, love, belonging, I'm okay, I'm good enough. Inside, I see it as like this, there's your eternal flame of your consciousness, of your being in the center. And then there's this sort of like sinewy tower that wraps all your heart threads, all the energy you can create wraps around this core and protects it. And then that strong sense of self, there's a hologram almost that is created in your outer edges. So the stronger the core is, the stronger the hologram on the outside, which is your protection, like natural protection. If you have a really wobbly core sense of self, then things can come in, like there's lack of protection.
I just want to, can I interrupt for just a second? Because as you were saying that, I had such a powerful visual of the DNA strands, like spiraling around like that hollow core center. So it's not, I mean, it's like that I am presence is actually this radiant sense, but it's actually quite hollow and holy in a way, right? But then those, the DNA, I don't know, I just had this really beautiful feel of that, like the full vertical channel.
Yeah. So I mean, and we look at that in the Transmute Distortion course. It actually starts tomorrow, and it's Tuesdays is like a workshop, where I go through different tools. There's so many. I've written down all the tools I've worked with in the last decade, and then we're looking at different.
Amazing, by the way. If you haven't done any of Sarah's courses, do them. I've done the aura transformation with her, and visibility gateway, and some personal mentoring as well too. So love Sarah. She's a genius at this.
Thank you. On the Tuesdays is like workshop style where we're just kind of going through tools and practicing them, and there's guided journey, like close your eyes, let's do the thing. And then on Thursdays is the optional add-on of doing it, the kinesiology on top. So we really start encoding all of this, and we're looking at your DNA and your RNA messaging. We're looking at what kind, like I will not take on that.
Boy, now it's like the time to be doing it, isn't it?
Really
reclaim the DNA.
Yeah,
the RNA, all of it, right? That's a huge level of our sovereignty at the moment, right?
Yeah. So it's how do you work with making those very strong commands, in your field. We're going to be looking at reclaiming your book of life, so no one can tamper with its pages. We're looking at your design of energy, so the structure that makes your the home of your consciousness, spirit, and body is not being tampered with, is not being, pieces removed and random bits added so that you do what someone else wants you to do, for example. So with the kinesiology, we're looking at this in the workshops, but to really get to the bottom of it and really actually make sure things are tickety-boo, the kinesiology is there to really, embody it, because it's not only energy, consciousness, and emotional, mental work, it's also physical. We really make sure the body gets it, that's
the most important part right now, is that it actually lands, like fully transfigures inside of the cells in the physical, and the reclamation of the physical as a light body.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So that you can beam and feel a lot less jumpy, you know, like, oh, something bad's about to happen, you know, that kind of, I used to get that all the time, and now it's a lot easier. But that is definitely a sense of, you know, the collective, the noise, the fear is like, something's not right, something's not right. And if you can't manage your own mind to push that out, then it gets hard, you know. And I don't have I don't know if I'm naughty or what, but I don't have a practice at all. I don't have a daily practice. I for me, the path I've been on is learning, like suffering, and then learning the tools, and then getting obsessed with them, and then doing them constantly, and then just going, it is that. And then I have like a toolkit, like massive boxes of tools that if anything happens, I can go, you know, sort it. But in between, I just live life. I'm very human, just being very human with my child, doing art and like doing other stuff, because otherwise I would, you know, you can't, for me, doing the amount of energy work I do with people, I can't do it myself all the time as well. So I just work in a different way. But I know that there's a grace and beauty in having a daily practice. So I'm not saying don't, I'm just saying that we can do it in different ways, you know, like sometimes you need that. Because the more you do something, you know, you're changing the course of the river. Like, you know, by doing a daily practice, it moves in the direction you want to go in. Yeah, so it depends maybe on where you are in your life as well. Maybe I'll come into creating a practice that I like, but I'm kind of rebelling against the practice myself.
Love it.
But I think I think it's just it's, to me, healing and doing shadow work or doing transmuting distortion is tools that are essential to know how to deal with stuff that's happening. And it can happen on a daily level, like someone's pissed off at you and they're thinking about your day. That's a level of energy at you that is distorting to your everyday field. So how do you deal with those things? And then if you're in a leadership position or a teacher, or, you know, you have students or you have clients, or there's all projections and energies, and you know, there's a whole kind of kaleidoscope mandala effect of how do you hold your center, and how do you walk with integrity and with grace, and recognize the distortions happening so that they don't mess up your plan, you know, or what you're teaching, for example, the containers you're holding. So we're looking at it from all these levels, from, you know, the big shift that the world's going through, the remembering, the initiations, the entities, the beings in the other dimensions we maybe don't want to be in, climbing out of hell, to bringing in more heavenly frequencies of your own. You know, there's so much to it that's what it's a 5-week course. So I'm going to do my best. I think it's probably could be longer.
I think it's good though. Like it's almost that, you know, giving a container that's pretty condensed like that is actually really good right now, because we change so quickly at the moment, right? The transfigurations are afoot, and so linear time is an illusion anyway, right? In the quantum realm, it's not even real, and so I do think that this is part of the thing of that. You know, it doesn't have to take a lot of quote linear time to actually experience a profound transfiguration and a profound change that actually truly does land, right? It does not, it doesn't take decades now, right? No. It doesn't take decades because again, collectively, we've changed the field already in a huge way, right? All of us who've been on our path, who have been doing practices, you know, and for me, you know, I think I so relate in terms of, especially when you're a facilitator and a teacher, your quote daily practice, or the practice of that, it's you know, it's what you're doing when you're teaching a lot, right? Because you're in that field anyway. But I do want to drop in, this just comes from the high priestess part of me, that, you know, my Virgo South Node that loves practices, is that, you know, one of the things that we do, and this doesn't have to be, it's almost like an anti-practice, right? It's a devotion to your joy, right? So choosing, you know, like placing an intention that your practice is that you're going to follow your joy, right? And what actually brings that sense of aliveness out more for yourself, right? That's how we found the future for our children and their children and their children's children, right? That's how we really help support Gaia to kind of push off the slave planet stories and the feeding the parasitical story, like all the stuff that's going on right now, right? And you know, if we had 2 more hours, we could get into some of like, well, what are the real stories here? What's going on? But there's a lot that's here. A lot of what we do know is wrong, right? It's just not accurate.
It's the same with the ancestral stuff. Is like, okay, well, that pattern of my ancestors is going to stop now because that's not helped us for hundreds of years. And it's the same with what you're saying now with like, what kind of spaces do we want to create for our children or for ourselves and our animals and the land, so that
we don't want the suffering spaces anymore, right? I mean, like we want to get the skill, we want to know who we are, we want to allow that to expand in. And there is a certain place on the path where you come, and you know, you mentioned it, where it's like, oh, you just choose what's good, right? And that's where you choose out of the karmic looping. You choose your dharma rather than your karma, right? You allow the karma to fuel that, right? You allow the karma to fuel it. In the Celtic traditions, it would be your gaze, right? Which is the taboo or the vows that you make that limit your practices and all of that. You actually, and in the Celtic traditions, it's not like karma is not a negative thing at all. It's actually a brilliant source of sovereignty, right? There's no suffering in karma. There's no kind of looping that goes on in there. The underworld is actually the shining realm of sovereignty, right? It's inner earth, it's Agartha, it's the hollow hills, the fairy realms, right? These shimmering realms. It's not this awful place of hell, right? It's this amazing place of enchantment and true genius power. Genius being like the genie of a place is the genus loci, right? The power of the earth, your body expressed. Okay, so anyway, there's all that, but choosing your joy is one of the prime, like if there's anything you're going to practice that now, because it's what we want to leave as a legacy for our children, right?
I guess maybe my life is a kind of a practice in itself then.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Joy and beauty, that's I'm doing that all the time myself.
Yeah,
and it's such a difference.
Isn't
it incredible?
Really emergent, right? It's like, maybe what bring me joy yesterday isn't what brings me joy today.
And isn't it incredible that our eyes that saw hell can turn around a few years later and see beauty and enchantment and expansion? Yeah. And totally. So we're not stuck. Our bodies do not want to stay stuck. I think that every trauma and pain or thing in the body, like whatever it is that's knotted up, it doesn't want to stay like that, even though we like telling a story about it, like, oh, I've got this thing and it's like that, and oh, I've just got this thing and this is the lot I was given and this is just it. And I just don't believe that. I think if we breathe into those spaces or look at them long enough or ask them questions, the pages want to turn and then something else wants to happen. So I'm so glad you just said all that bit at the end, because for me, I just sighed a big sigh of relief, because then I was like, there's the key to the whole power.
And I think it's like that. It's so important, like the rebellion and we're actually not being naughty if we're not doing things the way we should be doing them or whatever, right? It's like we're in this emergent field together. So I didn't say, and I know I've got to hop off in probably about 10 minutes, but there was something it's spliced in, and I didn't say it, but I want to say it now, and it's slippery like a little fish here. Let me just see here for a moment. It's so funny, when the field gets going, it's like you feel so many different things moving through. Okay, so it keeps wanting to be said. What is it? Come back, come back, come back. It is, okay, this is so important. When you're differentiating from egregore fields, especially from fear fields, from being hijacked by fear, whether it's ancestral fear or your own fear from you misused your power in a past life and you made a whole mess of stuff, and so now you're scared of your magical power now, or you're scared of whatever's going to happen in the world because of the crazy policies that are afoot right now, social engineering and all of that, right? Whatever might be going on. If you feel overwhelmed, if you feel confused, if you feel doubtful of your own power, that is a direct indication that you are in an egregorian hijacking. Okay, it's a direct, it is a sign that you're in a group consciousness that is not resonant for your highest and deepest good. Track it. Don't try to fight it. Say, is this mine? It's not yours. Redirect your attention. Choose something that helps you feel sovereign, right? Choose something that helps you feel sovereign, what your joy is. Because overwhelm, do not try to take the egregore down.
No.
Right? Don't try to fight the egregore. You cannot stop that karmic looping. The only power you have is to step out. Right? You cannot stop the karmic looping. You cannot stop any ancestors, hungry ghosts that are in your lineage from being in the karmic looping. You cannot even stop your children from being in the karmic looping. You can only stop yourself. Right? And that then radiates out. So overwhelm, confusion, doubt, powerlessness, any of that, it's a sign that you are in, you're being consumed by a collective field of fear, not enough, whatever that is, whatever the particular one you're in is. And it is a direct sign that, oh, I actually, you won't be able to undo that tangle yourself. Okay,
it's
you
like
won't.
being caught in a net.
What's that?
It's like being caught in a net.
It's like being caught in a net, and you can't do it. You can't fight it out. You have to kind of like go like this, like squeeze in and go, I'm going into power. I'm going to choose my joy and slip out the bottom. Right? I mean, that's a bit of it's just an image that came, but that's kind of what it feels like to me. It's like, I'm going to pull myself in. I'm not going to believe in whatever this thing is. It seems very real. This fear seems very real. It's actually not. I'm pulling myself out of the illusion, and I'm doing something that's going to support my joy, right? So one of the most important things energetically, and Sarah, I'm sure you have so much about this too, is that the solar plexus is the seat of the heart, right? It's the throne of the heart, and it's the energetically or physically, the diaphragm is there, right? And it's a place where we turn collective power, our root and our womb, into our personal power, and then our hearts can open because they're safe and they belong on top of that. But that solar power of the solar plexus, that's king energy, and king energy is happy. It is like, you want to think about like, oh, that big booming laugh of the king. I had this profound it was a sound healing journey that I did with a like massage, also healing journey with a brother in Avalon. He's an elven kind of king brother. He's amazing. And all of a sudden, like, we're working really deep with sound, and all of a sudden I started laughing and I couldn't stop. And this big booming laugh came out of my solar plexus, and it was the king. And it was like, it just reoriented everything in my life, and nothing touches that.
Yeah.
That is outside of distortion, right? It's in everybody. It doesn't matter what your gender identity is, right?
Yeah,
it's in everybody.
Like if there's this
not
little
even really truly masculine or feminine, right? There's solar goddesses, solar feminine archangels. There's like, there's it's not a gendered thing. It's
I was just as like a funny add-on to that. If there is like little allies pretending to be allies, or entities pretending to be allies, or anything like that, if fuck off doesn't work, then laugh in their face and they just can't cope with it.
Yeah, like the Harry Potter
distortion is just like,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's when you identify with it, starts feeding off and it gets bigger and it looks massive. But I know that you have to go in a minute, so I don't know if you want to share about what you've got. A few things coming up that maybe people
so let's see. So what do I have coming up? So in this spring, in 2022, by the way, this is such a powerful year for love, right? It's a 6 coded year. It's 222, right? That adds to 6, and that's the frequency of the lovers and romance and these royal couples coming back together. That's the inner-marriage and maybe outpicturing as well in true partnership, right? So there's a lot of beauty, lots of spiritual beauty that is afoot and available this year. And this actually in the tree of life, like in the Kabbalah, this is actually Tiferet. It's the solar power in the center, right? This is 6 energy. So it's so beautiful that kind of led into this. And so let's see, for this year, I have in the spring, I'm going to be offering a Dragon Mother's Mysteries. And so this is actually going to be working with really linking in with Gaia and the earth powers. We're going to work with Agartha, inner earth, and connecting in with the dragon powers of the land, really learning ceremonies with that, working with specific dragons. These are ancient, druidic, Avalonian practices, and actually it's going to be focused in through the temenos of Avebury, which is the largest stone circle on the planet. It's the dragon womb of Gaia, the dragon womb temple of Gaia. So it's going to be focused in through that. So this is online. There's a pilgrimage later in the year. It's all full, but this is an online journey class that I'm going to offer. And it's going to be open for enrollment probably within the next couple of weeks. And then also I'll be opening up applications for my Priestess Path of Avalon program, which is just my devotion. We have a beautiful lineage, and it's a 3+ year training. So it's a Priestess of Avalon, Queen of Avalon, and High Priestess of Avalon journey. And so those applications, it's by application only, and that opens up probably within about a month. The applications will open up for that.
I've worked with lots of your priestesses that have gone through your 3-year training. Yeah, they're just amazing to work with, because, you know, like with kinesiology, it can really help with those contracts and the distortions that happen to the priestess path. Even though I'm not on that path particularly, like with you, or I don't actually align to very many paths at all. My deepest memories of being energy worker was when there was primordial goo and dragons in the sky, and like, you know, like weird stuff like that. So I really love supporting all the lineages and helping with the distortion in them, if there is any. And so I've worked with lots of your women. They've been amazing to work with, and so I'm very grateful for you. Like, we're cross-pollinating like that. So my offerings, the one that you've done is the Visibility Gateway, which is not going to be till spring as well, because it's so intense. There's lots of personal feedback on your videos. There's lots of learning, and kinesiology is quite a big course. So I don't do it as often as I used to, because I spread it out a bit. So that's not till spring. And then the one that I really love it. It's called Love Again, and it's my heart retrieval course, because I realized after hundreds of heart retrievals and people coming with all their love stories, that once you had all your heart threads back and untangled from your past, you'd go out and start throwing them around again. And so I was like, how do I help people keep the heart threads and start learning to relate to others in a different way? So in a way, we're looking into this unknown new paradigm relating. What would that be? I mean, I'm not owning that as a title, but just, you know, once you have reclaimed all your heart threads and you don't want to enter into codependent relationships, how do you become more discerning? How do we clear the filters and the perspectives, the fantasies that have kept us from seeing people that might be good for us, friendships or people or ourselves? So there's a lot to the Love Again. It's a 10-week course this time. And just in reference to what you were saying before about, you know, we can do things very fast and things can be really big, like an aura transformation or transmute distortion, or, you know, like big quantum shifts. But then there's this other part of us that also needs a different kind of care that we maybe didn't get. If you didn't get the love or the holding that you needed as a baby and a child, and then you're having to learn how to hold yourself as an adult, that's a quieter revolution of transformation that takes longer. It's like an everyday learning to pour the love in, learning to hold yourself in a different way. So the Love Again thing is really lovely, and that it's 10 weeks, it's kinesiology based, there's the laser coaching, and I'm basically sharing all my tools. So they're different tools to the Transmute Distortion tools, but all my tools that I learned to love myself again. And I also call myself the expert in heartbreak, how to deal with heartbreak and grief, and how to learn how to forgive so that you can move on and still have hope or appreciation for love blossoming again. So instead of heartbreak, it's heart expansion, all that kind of stuff. So it's really an amazing thing. We do group heart retrieval instead of a solo one. So that actually starts the week after next, so on the 17th, and it's Mondays, so 10 till 12 p.m. 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on a Monday for 10 weeks with a little break in between. So it's actually good for people in Australia rather than America this time, so I'm sorry about that. But it's good for UK and Europe. And then Transmute Distortion actually starts tomorrow, the workshop thing. If you're not like sure, you can catch the replay of that, but the kinesiology starts on Thursday. and it's a small intimate group. I keep all my containers about 14 max, 14, so they're really special. You get a lot of, you know, you're there in the room with me. My real what gets me going is like mastery, but also real transformation. I'm not just going to let you watch some videos and then you go and do it yourself. We're in the room together and we're going to make it happen together, and you're going to leave with a new structure and a new sense of self and ways of dealing with whatever comes up in the future. So that's
so beautiful, Sarah. And I want to say that, you know, that's actually what you just said is one of the keys. So if you're in the overwhelm, you're in an egregore field, you can't handle it individually. The ways that egregores change are when other egregores, a collective field, changes, right? So I love that meta level that you just expressed around, you know, both I feel it in the transmuting distortions, and then also the love again and the heart retrieval work in this, especially in the 6th year, just really extraordinarily aligned, right? And there's some collective levels of love that are really, they are changing. Right?
And that's what happens as well. If you imagine doing kinesiology 1-to-1, like me and you do kinesiology, and then we're going to that there's something in the way or something that needs to be shifted, something attached or whatever, and we're really pushing it away together, like our spirit force sovereignty is pushing it away. Imagine 14 people doing that at the same time. It's totally different. Not totally different, it's the same aspect, but we're working then on a much bigger level. We're actually affecting the field as not just our own then. And that's what gets me going, and I'm quite excited about that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Cool. Okay, well, look at that, exactly 1/4 past. Amazing. I mean, I thought we were going to go on for hours and hours.
I know. I wish I had time. I do have my beautiful 13-year-old daughter home from school today, you know, because of all the crazy stuff that's afoot, and so I have to go and tend with her. But it's just been so delightful, Sarah, of course, always to be with you and to connect in and to have these really fertile conversations and to be with everyone that's here live. Thank you all. Some of your faces, I see you. You're so beautiful and amazing, and so many blessings on your journeys. And for all that are on the Facebook Live and will listen to the replay, you know, really, truly, we're doing it together. And it's an amazing time to be alive, right? It's an amazing time. Yeah.
So I was just thinking, I think that what we'll do for links is I'll send an email out to whoever registered with the replay. I mean, you can find it on my live thing, and then I'll put our links in case you want to get in touch with us. It's been such a pleasure. I loved chatting with you, Holly, and I hope we do it again. I think that when things come that are like, ooh, what is that? I'd love to talk again. And I think we should maybe close, but thank you so much for everyone that's been, and anyone listening live or on the replay. Really appreciate your time and trust and love. It's beautiful work. Thank you.
Many blessings.
Bye, everybody. Bye.